You guys know I always got to do at least one good foreign policy story with you guys. Now, the Ukraine war is a fraudulent money laundering scheme that RBN and our allies been calling out from day one. So I think it's useful as an anti-imperialist to debunk the propaganda, the pro-war propaganda we see on cable news, because this is how they prime people to accept war. Now, in doing this over the last 2 years, because I didn't watch corporate media for a long time until to RBN hit. Then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do propaganda segments to explain why I started watching this stuff. So I've been shocked when I've been seeing these people say the quiet part loud as hell, CJ. Loud as hell, JB. And I'm going to show you guys an example of this. They have a fucking convicted felon, Ollie North. You know, the guy who's responsible for the Iran Contra scandal? Mm-hmm. Look at what this guy said on Sean Hannity. And I know you guys are going to love this. Once again, straight up said the quiet part out loud. I'm going to say Matt tweet for later. I don't want him to spoil it. But look at what this guy said. I want us to react. This is going to be a fun or short segment. Let's check this out.
Is that money well spent? The president's assuring us that he's going to deal with it responsibly, but $110 billion, American people aren't seeing that kind of money. It's coming out of their pockets.
Well, it's coming out of all of our pockets, but it's money well spent. In my humble opinion, this is very much.
This guy is now, he's a disgraced, convicted felon who was guilty of Iran Contra and then was pardoned by George W. Bush Sr., by the way. So now conservatives gave him a job. Aren't they supposed to be the law and order party? They got a fucking criminal on TV. Meanwhile, they want to lecture black people. Isn't that funny? And then they asked him about his opinion about geopolitical events. And he says, once again, the fiscal conservative said it's worth his investment. And another reason I'm showing you guys this, because obviously Tucker get a lot of play, Matt Gaetz get a lot of play, but I cannot emphasize enough, this whole thing about Republicans being against the Ukraine war, that is a very small minority. And I feel like people don't understand that. There's only one senator who voted against it. Literally every single Fox News host, I've watched a lot of these segments, almost every single Fox News host, except Tucker Carlson, is all for this. So this thing where conservatives are against the Ukraine war is mostly a myth. It's more just personalities. Like every once in a while you see one random conservative talk about it. And I think that's more a reflection of the liberal class more than anything. Now, anyway, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you guys hear this guy unhinged take. But if you guys don't know, this is the guy who was convicted because of Iran Contra. So let's continue.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming out of all of our pockets, but it's money well spent. In my humble opinion, this is very much like what Ronald Reagan did back in the 80s. And I do have some experience with that. I know that makes me a lot older than most of our viewers. But in fact, he believed in supporting freedom fighters. He did it in Latin America. He did it in Angola.
The way these people just say the quiet part out loud. He literally just admit that U.S. foreign policy in Ukraine is similar to Ronald Reagan funding freedom fighters. They say quiet part out loud. Anyway, let me continue.
Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique. He did it in Afghanistan. Those people were willing, as the Ukrainian people are, to use their freedom fighters. He did it in Latin America. He did it in Angola, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique. He did it in Afghanistan. Those people were willing, as the Ukrainian people are, to use their blood and our bullets. And by the way, most of that 110 billion total between the 45, the 1.7, and the previous 65, over 110 billion, is spent here in the United States. It's provided to contractors and defense logisticians and the kinds of people.
So if you guys didn't hear what he just said, he just admitted it. He just admitted this whole Ukraine thing is a money laundering scheme for American weapon manufacturers. Let me rewind that part again. Actually, I'm gonna rewind for this part. Here, you heard him admit that they're willing to sacrifice Ukrainians, and they're funding the Nazis in Ukraine the same way they funded the extreme fascist, violent Contras who used to kidnap and torture people, even women and children who were considered to be friendly to the Sandinistas. So this is him saying, oh yeah, right now Biden is doing the same thing Reagan did. We're funding the extreme elements of a society to advance U.S. geopolitical interests. And then he says, Well, if you guys think we were just wasting the money, we're not wasting the money. This money comes right back to us because essentially a money laundering scheme where we get money to weapon defense contractors. So with that said, I'm gonna play it again so you guys can hear it, and then I want you guys to respond to it. I'll get CJ.
It's coming out of all of our pockets, but it's money well spent. In my humble opinion, this is very much like what Ronald Reagan did back in the 80s, and I do have some experience with that. I know that makes me a lot older than most of our viewers, but in fact, he believed in supporting freedom fighters. He did it in Latin America. He did it in Angola, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique. He did it in Afghanistan. Those people were willing, as the Ukrainian people are, to use their blood and our bullets. And by the way, most of that 110 billion total between the 45, the 1.7, and the previous 65 over 110 billion is spent here in the United States. It's provided to contractors and defense logisticians and the kinds of people who build the kinds of systems that we're getting. So most of that money is spent here in America. Good, hardworking Americans have the jobs. And when you look at that kind of an investment, what would be the difference if when the giant does awake, and that's all about communist China. It's just not a plug for this book. The idea of it is the right message.
Sorry, let me play that part again. I really want to emphasize this part. Because
My bad.
Always. In this 90-second clip, he literally admits everything that are being said about the Ukraine war. In this part, I'm going to play this part again. He admits the Ukraine war is literally just a beta test for the larger war against the larger threat of China and Taiwan. Let me play the last 20 seconds again.
Here in America, good, hardworking Americans have the jobs. And when you look at that kind of an investment, what would be the difference if when the giant does awake, and that's all about communist China. It's just not a plug for this book. The idea of it is to make sure that they get the right message and to make sure that Putin gets the right message. No more invasions. And that means the people in Taiwan are going to need the same kinds of weapon systems that we're now providing to the Ukrainians.
I'm going to pass it to you guys. I want you guys to react. This is Matt's tweet. Amazing candor from the Iran-Contra felon Ali North. Ukraine is just like Reagan's dirty war in Central America, Africa, and Afghanistan. And he's talking about funding the Azov brutal thugs, Nazis. He said that's a good idea because we used to fund the Mujahideen. He said it's a good thing. And then Matt says here, most of the aid is a kickback to weapon manufacturers and beltway contractors, like he admits. And the last thing I'm gonna say, I'll pass it to you guys for this part of the segment. Isn't it depressing that this guy had the same foreign policy as Bernie Sanders and the progressives? I know that guy sounds crazy, but that guy has the same foreign policy as Bernie Sanders as of right now. I'm sorry, I'm an asshole. I can't help but to let Bernie people know. Same geopolitical ideas. But go ahead, James. CJ, I want you guys to react to that before I move on to the next part of this short story.
That's Oliver North being Oliver North, man. He has always been a scumbag, and this is what the ruling class does, though. They're never canceled for what they do. They just re-prop them up. Like in another 10 years, Michelle Obama will be making a duet with Donald Trump. So just like they're doing with George Bush. They never pay for their sins. There's never a cancel culture for them. It's just a rebranding of imperialism. Go ahead.
That's such a great point. Now you can see why conservatives decry cancel culture. I don't give them benefit of doubt. They probably decry cancel culture. They're like, man, come on, we can't have war criminals anymore.
Yeah.
Go ahead, JP. You guys always like canceling. Oh well, he only bombed the country. You guys, your fucking principles and values.
The goal really is to spill blood. They don't care if it's Ukrainian blood or American blood. They just want to spill blood because that means they make more money. That's ultimately what this is about. They don't give a crap about Ukrainians. They don't give a crap about Russians. The thing is that what is the goal of U.S. imperialism is to spread capitalism abroad. This is what they want to do. They want to take over Russia as far as its resources. The problem is Putin is saying, not so fast. And so that's what's going on. Is Putin also a capitalist? Yes, but he's the capitalist that's their competition. Whereas United States is McDonald's, Russia is Burger King. So the problem is that that's what they want to do. They don't And so it's not like they're that much different, but he's like, no, we're cheaper and we're not going to exploit as much as you guys. And so the United States is like, no, so we got to take you out. So that's basically what they're trying to do. And they're trying to use the blood of Ukrainians in order to do it. That's all it really is. Zelensky is nothing but a puppet of the United States and NATO regime.
Absolutely.
And so with that being said, then guess what? All this money is really just a big ass money laundering scheme in order to push that they're pushing in order to make Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop Grumman richer. That's all it is. And the thing is that some people, some of y'all with the Ukraine flag in your bio, are falling for the okie doke. Y'all falling for the grift of the military industrial complex.
And they could care about the Ukraine. They do not care about the Ukrainian people at all. The people that Ukraine. I'll pass right back to you, Jay. But you see how this guy just said they are fighting our war. He's like proud that the Ukrainian people are fighting this battle for him. They do not care. But go ahead, James.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting how these Western nations, even when the truth is smacked them in the face, they have no comeback for it. And I'm not sure, did you ever get to take a look at that video of a young Australian Russian that basically asked a question to a moderator and to the guests about why haven't they did any type of intervention in 2014 when the coup was happening in Crimea and they really did nothing. And then they wanted to kick him off stage. They kicked him out because he dared to ask that question.
That's the same as
I had that video, by the way.
Yeah, that's the same as, remember, CJ, we covered that when what's that name of that guy? He was on Jimmy's show. He was on Democracy Now. He's the establishment guy. Always talk about Ukraine. Oh, goddamn.
Sachs.
Yeah. Jeffrey. Remember when Jeffrey Sachs?
Jeffrey Sachs. Yeah, that's it.
And then he starts speaking truth about the Ukraine war. And the moderator cut him off like, I'm the moderator. You shut him down. Like, what does that say when we hear what JB said and you see what happened to that guy and the moderator? They know they're wrong. Like, dude, if I were caught doing some shit like that, I would reflect. I'm like, why am I have to do this? Why do I have to shut someone up? Like they don't reflect. But anyway, I'm gonna show you guys the last few receipts and then we can get out of here. We're about 2 hours in. But I'm gonna show you guys, as you mentioned, JB, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, this is a complex money laundering scheme. Do you guys want to see the results of this money laundering scheme and why Joe Manchin said he's all in when he was asked by Matt Blumenthal about this? You want to see why Bernie Sanders called Nick Brana a paid shield because he questioned this? Do you guys want to see the consequences of the votes of Bernie Sanders and AOC? And yes, guys, I will never let them go. I will never, ever let them live this shit down because I thought being a leftist was opposing the arms industry. I knew that even when I was a dumb. Sorry, I'm muting my mic on accident. That's weird. But anyway, when I was a dumb leftist, even then I was like, yeah, we oppose the military, right? Now we have NATO left that's all for it, right? So I'm gonna show you guys this. This is who benefits. This is the votes. These are the consequences of the votes of AOC and Bernie Sanders and the NATO left. The arsenal of democracy is back in business. And we already know in the West, democracy is those bombs. Proposed U.S. arms sales to NATO almost doubled this past year. Do you guys need to hear that again? U.S. arms sales to NATO almost doubled this past year. No criticism of that from the Bernie Sanders wing. No criticism of this of the NATO left. Bernie Sanders like, we don't give a fuck about them arms sales. Hell yeah, them arms sales is crazy. We don't give a fuck about none of that. None of that. Now you guys see why they are obsessed with continuing this conflict and they won't allow debate. Now I'm gonna show you guys this one because just to speed it up. European defense spending is no longer a laughing matter. A 2023 preview. CJ, we're gonna have a lot of content calling out the neocons next year because they are just getting started. They are just now getting started. Remember, I showed you Japan doubling their military budget. Remember Imperial Japan, responsible for the rape of Nanjing, the death of millions of Chinese. They did so many heinous acts in Southwest and Southeast China and Asia. They literally demilitarized. So then the U.S. was like, "Nah, fuck that shit. You guys not pussy. You guys not gonna be pussies anymore. We are arming up. This is late stage capitalism. We are arming up against the global working class." European defense spending no longer a laughing matter. 2023 will bring in an exception. Oh, sorry. Let me read that again. 2023 will bring with it an expectation that Germany and a collection of other 19 NATO countries that committed to increase defense spending after Russia invaded Ukraine act on those plans. The NATO left, cannot emphasize enough, zero criticism of this.